During this video, we're going to be frosting these snowflakes. These are part of our beginner 12 Days of Christmas Advent Calendar stencil sets. So this frosts 4 different snowflakes all at one time. So if you were to frost all 12 designs, they all frost 4 at a time. So by the time you got through all 12 designs, you would have 4 advent calendars ready to go. I already frosted my bases using the Frosting Artist Base Layer Guide. If you don't know how to use this guide yet, you can follow the link below this video to watch the tutorial. Okay, we're going to add our first stencil. I'm going to use my guide so that I can anchor my stencil level with my toppers instead of down on the table. This just helps keep your stencil from curling or bending. I'm just making sure that each of these snowflakes looks fairly centered in these circles. Once you get that where you want it, you're just going to use some black icing. And this one's just a little bit tricky because we have a lot of points all pointing in towards the middle there. And we don't want to push underneath any of these. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to tack down. I'm going to actually anchor onto my toppers over here to help keep that from lifting up. I'm going to tack down all of the little arms that poke out on this snowflake. And you can see I'm frosting towards the middle because we have a lot of little pieces of plastic that all come towards that middle point. You see that I was holding down and anchoring onto my toppers because they are fully dry, and that just helps keep my stencil from lifting as much. You want to make sure that your icing is about a kind of a thick toothpaste-like consistency. And this will help ensure that your icing doesn't bleed underneath the stencil or push underneath the stencil if it's too thick or thin. Now that those both are tacked down, that should help keep our stencil from lifting up on these last couple of designs. And you can see I'm just stopping right when I get to the middle there, and then once all of those are tacked down, I just come in and add the icing in the middle. And I'm not pushing hard, I'm holding my scraper fairly flat to the table. If I hold it straight up towards a 90-degree angle, you do tend to put more pressure that way, and that's what pushes your icing underneath. So you want your spatula to be fairly flat with the table, and just let the weight of your spatula apply that icing. That's how you get those nice crisp edges. All right, coming with my flat edge, this is just an icing smoother, and I'm just going to gently swipe across. And as I come across each time, I can apply a little bit more pressure as needed. I do scrape off the icing on my scraper, and then I come through and I wipe that edge clean. If you leave icing on the edge and then go to scrape your next layer, it is going to leave little grooves in your icing. Anchor in one corner and then peel from the opposite. You see that we have those nice clean edges. I'm going to turn on my desktop fan, let this dry while I clean up, and then once it's fully dry, we'll apply that next color. Our second layer is going to be the white of our snowflake. And you just want to make sure that you have a nice even outline of that black around this next stencil. Once you get that lined up where you want it, come in with your white, and we're just going to apply the icing in the same way that we did on the previous stencil. So I'm going to anchor down on one of these other toppers and then come in here and swipe towards the middle here. I like to make sure that my lighter colors like this white are a little bit thicker when they're on a dark color like the black or red or something like that. That way that darker color isn't as likely to show through. So I'm not going to really swipe off the excess icing on this one. Okay, now we have those all covered. Go through with your scraper. I'm just making sure that edge doesn't have any dried icing on it. And then I'm going to very, very gently scrape across a couple times, make sure that's nice and smooth, but still thick. So I can still see my design through the icing, but I'm not quite scraping onto the plastic yet. So that's how thick I made this layer. That'll just help it stay kind of this grayish white color that I have, because I did add a little bit of black to my white to make it gray. Once that's all the way dry, we can add our very last layer, which just adds a little star in the center. If you don't want the star, you can call these finished. Our final layer is going to be this little star in the middle. And you can make this any color you'd like. I'm just going to make it yellow because that way, if I decide to either paint or airbrush it gold, then that yellow will help bring that gold color out. I'm just going to kind of anchor close to this star, because my stencil is feeling like it wants to kind of curl upwards. I'm not going to use our big scraper for this part since it's such a tiny detail. And there's our little star. So once that's fully dry, this is where you could come through. You would clean your stencil and lay it back over it to kind of make sure that nothing really goes past the stencil, the shape of your star. And then you could paint or airbrush gold over this little star. We're gonna let that dry all the way first though. So I'll probably add my gold accents after I attach these to the cookies. So I'm just going to show you how to pop these off real quick. I'm just peeling off the tape. I use tape to hold this plastic down so it doesn't shift while I'm frosting. If you've purchased any of the stencil sets off of frostingars.com, this clear plastic comes with each stencil set purchased. It's basically just clear acetate. All right, now we have that done. You can pick it up, flip it over, and then you're just going to start to curl that plastic. And you don't want to push on the toppers themselves to get them off. You want them to just fall off on their own. And there are your snowflakes. If you aren't putting these on cookies right away, you can add your gold details. And then once everything's fully dry, you can stack them just like this and store them in a container so that you keep them clean. And then once it's time to put your advent calendars together or your orders, then you can just pull these out and attach them to your fresh baked cookies. If you just barely frosted these bases as you were going through this tutorial, I would suggest waiting at least 4 hours. Usually I'll frost these during the day, and then I'll just let them sit overnight so that they are fully dry before peeling them off. That way you don't have any breakage. Before we attach this to the cookie, I am going to add some gold. And I just have the gold luster dust, and I just added some vodka to it. The alcohol will evaporate quicker than the water, and so that just makes it so that that water doesn't eat away at your topper, at the frosting. So it'll evaporate faster. I'm just painting each one of these little stars in the center of the snowflakes gold. That'll just help it pop a little bit more. All right, once you get the gold on there, you can see how much that helped kind of finalize this design. It has a little bit of gold sparkle in the middle. Okay. Now we're going to add this to the cookie. The icing that you use to attach to your cookie is going to be about the same as what we stenciled with, maybe just slightly thinner, but not by much. You want to trace the outline of your cookie, and then I always fill it in with this little squiggle because when we attach this topper, it's going to press that icing out. Drop your topper on, use multiple fingers to gently press down. Try not to press right on the edges, more towards the center. And I just like to wiggle it. That really helps it set down in there. Then you're just going to take your finger and you're going to wipe off that excess icing that kind of pressed out from underneath the topper. There you have it. I did accidentally touch that gold heart, the gold star, so I've got a little bit of gold out here. But you can see that nice clean finish. Your topper is fully attached. Let this dry at least 4 hours before bagging it, and then you can put it in your advent calendars or in your gift sets for the holidays. If you're making these early like me in November, well, you can. Once these are fully dry, you can stack them, put them in an airtight container on the shelf, and then once December rolls around and it's time to get these out the door, you can bake fresh cookies and attach them at that time.